Knox and picks going to Portland after the Warriors had initially acquired Bay and then Knox via Atlanta and all of that. But all of that obviously pending still the failed physical designation from the Warriors regarding Payton yesterday upon exam. So everybody kind of holding their breath and wondering what will come and what the Warriors' decision ultimately will be on whether they accept the deal or rescind the trade, which is their right pending the failed physical examination on Gary Payton II. No new deal can be agreed to or anything like that since the trade deadline has passed. All of the rest of the players involved in the deal, according to Woj of ESPN, have passed their physicals and are just waiting for the Warriors' decision. They hold the cards here as far as what to do with GP2 and James Wiseman and all of the other players and picks that are on the move in this 4-team deal involving, again, the Warriors, Portland, Detroit, and Atlanta. We'll give you the very latest from Woj, as he did have some new information just within the last hour. The Warriors, in their pregame press conference with head coach Steve Kerr, offered no further statement on where the Warriors are at. And so nothing new to report. If anything breaks, obviously, in the next half hour regarding a decision or during the game or after the game tonight, we'll obviously have you covered for it right here on 95.7 The Game as the Warriors gear up to play a new-look Lakers team that's going to be without LeBron James in this game, as well as we get to our injury report, which is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson. Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more info, visit boxerlaw.com. And, yeah, we'll get right to it. LeBron James out for the Lakers in this one. He was ruled out a little bit earlier this afternoon. LeBron James in this game for the Lakers, left ankle soreness. He didn't play the other night as the Lakers took on Milwaukee. Of course, LeBron on Tuesday night breaking the all-time NBA scoring record in the game against Oklahoma City. And so the Lakers are going to be without LeBron James. In this one, Anthony Davis, probable right foot stress injuries, what he popped up with on the injury report. Of course, the Warriors without Steph Curry again with the left superior tib-fib sprain. No Andre Iguodala. Again, Gary Payton II, trade pending, so he is out. And, of course, Ryan Rollins with the right foot surgery. We talked about the Lakers. They were highly active in the days leading up to and at the trade deadline. They've got a new-look squad with a bunch of players that they acquired over the last couple of days that are set to make their debuts for Los Angeles in that game against the Warriors tonight. So we'll get to that. D'Angelo Russell, former Warrior, hard to believe now, going back 3 years since D'Lo was traded from the Warriors to Minnesota. He wound up back with the team that originally drafted him, going back to 2015. Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley also coming over in trade for the Lakers, as they've got a much different-looking squad. Rui Hachimura acquired. Mo Bamba facing a league suspension still from that fight going back a couple of weeks, so Bamba will not be available for the Lakers in this one. But, yeah, we'll get you set up with some of the matchups coming up here. But do want to give you the latest on everything with the trade per Woj of ESPN here on Warriors Live, sponsored by Xfinity Internet. Better streaming with our Flex 4K device, voice remote, and Peacock Premium, all at no extra cost, no strings attached. We'll also let you hear, because there hasn't been a lot of new information over the last 24 hours, from Anthony Slater of The Athletic, who joined Damon and Ratto yesterday to give the Warriors' sense of where things stood at that point as they look to make their decision, but want to make sure everybody's updated on the absolute latest before we do that. And again, per Woj, the deadline now for the Warriors to make their decision on Gary Payton's physical and the fate of the trade involving the Blazers, Hawks, and Pistons, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. So 6:30 Pacific, the Warriors have to make the decision by on Payton's physical. And it sounds as if, according to Woj, the Warriors may push it into tomorrow to evaluate the abdominal injury. According to Woj, the Warriors believe important information was withheld prior to the deadline, and that the Warriors believe that they should have been informed about the Toradol injections that Peyton was receiving as something that had typically been done for players in the playoffs as opposed to the regular season, and they feel that was left out, and so it puts the Warriors in a position where they didn't have all of the relevant information as far as all of that goes. So that's the latest from Woj. He also noted that the Warriors could, or that the league could, punish Portland with a fine and a loss of draft picks. An investigation would be done, and if that investigation led down a path where there was a, quote, failure to disclose relevant information, and again, the Warriors view that as the failure to acknowledge the Toradol shots to alleviate pain, then Portland could be punished, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Warriors would benefit from that. They have to okay the deal or nix the deal, and they have until 6:30 Pacific time tomorrow to ultimately make a decision. So Warriors Live rolling on here on 95.7 The Game. John Dickinson with you. I want to give everybody an opportunity to hear that brief interview with Anthony Slater and Damon and Ratto. So we'll do that. We'll come back. We'll talk about some of the matchups for this one as the Warriors gear up to face the Lakers.
Anthony Slater, God, we were on with you yesterday. Thanks for diving on back with us with all this breaking news. We really appreciate your time. Slater, we're stunned. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, my day's been a little bit crazy ever since the Warriors basically canceled their, introductory press conference or whatever you want to call it, reintroduction. It seemed a little off today at practice, I'll say that. And, now you know why.
Okay, let's cut to the chase here. As a practical matter, based on what we know, which is that Peyton flunked his physical and now he's going back for additional x-rays tonight, what is the Warriors' list of options here? We know they can, negate the entire trade. They can accept the entire trade. But then there's this sort of nebulous third option that you and Shams referred to, that they could consider amendments to the trade. How exactly would that work?
We're trying to kind of figure that out. It's a little bit complicated with the 4-team deal. There's a chance that they just can't. I know that's very league office related, and you got to get 4 teams back in the room. And, some of these teams didn't deal with Portland at all. Like, Portland was very much like the fourth leg of this deal. So I'm not sure that that's even going to be on the table. And I'm not reporting that it isn't. I think everything is very much up in the air and being figured out at a lot of high levels tonight. But, I mean, theoretically, if an amendment was allowed, yeah, sure. I mean, it just seems like, you could just take – the Warriors only dealt with Portland, so you could just kind of reflip that part of the deal. But, when something's done at the deadline and it's roped into a 4-team deal, it's kind of either happening or it's not. So I think it needs to be decided if it's going to happen or if it's not going to happen.
Slater, what's the level of anger here on Bob Myers or Joe Lacob? Are they personally offended by this?
Yeah, the Warriors have been pretty upset today about the situation, the negotiations with Portland, and just, I guess, how this all went down. And, obviously we had some of the details in our story, and they're trying to figure out, kind of what their path forward is. But they made this deal because they wanted a win-now player, and their win-now player cannot play now, and they did not know that before they made the deal.
To what level does Gary Payton II have any responsibility to disclose what he needs to get through a game? If he had been more upfront with the Warriors, would that have changed things?
Well, that's the problem. Like, Gary Payton's not part of the negotiations. He doesn't know he's getting traded. But James Wiseman's not in the negotiating table talking to the Pistons. Players are just called and said, hey, we made a deal. Gary Payton's called yesterday and said, you're going to the Warriors. So the deal's already done by the time he's notified. So he is up front. He comes and takes a physical and then tells them what he's been going through. But the trade had already been agreed by the time he could do that.
From what you've been able to piece together with Shams, is the greatest likelihood that the Warriors found out about at least the shots that Peyton was getting from Peyton himself after the deal was sort of tentatively agreed to?
I don't have that, these are obviously very delicate pieces of information. So I don't know. I don't know exactly, when and how and who relayed exactly what piece of information. But I can just say it came out after the trade. I will say that like this was a known injury where he got ab surgery in the summer. They initially said his timeline was he was maybe going to be back for the regular season opener. He was unable to do that. He's mentioned that he had setbacks. He ends up missing 35 games all the way through Christmas. And in his post-game press conference the day after he got back, he's mentioning that it basically saying it won't. I'm paraphrasing, but it's not going to be right the rest of the regular season. He's just going to kind of have to play through it. So there were hints that stuff was going on, but not necessarily like it doesn't seem in the negotiations the details of it to exactly what length.
Anthony Slater joining us to talk about the fact the Gary Payton trade may get scuttled after it's revealed that Gary Payton still has a core injury that would sideline him for 3 months, according to the Warriors doctors. Joe Cronin, the general manager of the Portland Trailblazers, is saying, hey, we had a healthy player. We deemed him healthy to play, and he was playing. How can two medical staffs speak and see the same injury through two completely different prisms?
I mean, they're different people, different staff, different thresholds, I guess you would say. I mean, Rick Celebrini is noted to be not even just careful, but thorough, with his players. I mean, we've seen that over the last couple of seasons. So, from my understanding that they don't believe this is an injury, he should be playing through, and there needs to be some type of, rehab process that puts him in jeopardy to miss the season. Why there was a difference in opinion between Portland and the Warriors, I wasn't necessarily in the room, certainly in Portland's room to know why they decided to have him play through it. But, that is what could possibly blow up one of the biggest deals at the deadline.
If we wanted to go ahead and just be really, on the surface of what it would be. So this whole thing began with the trade of James Wiseman. John Hollinger a couple of days ago talked about how that could be done in the name of cap relief alone. To scuttle this deal, it essentially then cost the Warriors $130 million in the money that they're now not saving because James Wiseman is back on the roster. Would the Warriors really pay $130 million to undo this?
Well, it wouldn't be 130. They saved with this deal. Basically, you could say $37 million is right around the projection. $7 million this season, $30 next season, because you have to add salary to get off James Wiseman. They initially added basically Sadiq Bey and Kevin Knox's money. That is turned into Bey to Atlanta, Knox to Portland, and that salary becomes Payton. Now Payton's salary is lowered enough that it does, like I said, save $37 million, but not $130 million. You would have had to get off Wiseman and not bring anything back for that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. So would they be willing to pay $30 million, whatever the money that they might have saved? Is that now something Joe Lacob would be willing to eat to undo this?
We'll see. I believe tomorrow at noon. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be noon is the deadline to decide if this is happening or not. And I think that's one of the factors at play. Another one is walking James Wiseman back in the room. James Wiseman's in Detroit today. He has his GM doing a press conference talking about how happy they are to be there and how great this is for James Wiseman's career. He's going to play a bunch with Detroit. And, Dwayne Casey did a press conference talking about how Steve Kerr had relayed to him, that he's going to be great to coach. Like, it's going to be pretty awkward to walk him back in the room, not to mention Sadiq Bey has to walk back to Detroit potentially, and obviously Payton to Portland. Like, there's a lot of things that would make really undoing this deal pretty awkward.
One other question that I have, I don't know that if you've had time to look up any precedents for this, because I'm sure there have been some. Traditionally, what would be the league's role here in terms of potential punishment for the Blazers? Would it simply be a fine, or are there other options like you lose a draft choice? What are the parameters here that we're talking about?
I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, this is obviously somewhat, I don't know, maybe it's not unprecedented, but it's a difference in opinion. I think a lot of these, fuller details are still being fleshed out. I mean, it's obviously something the league will get involved in, and I would assume and needs to, but I don't know, if punishment necessarily comes or doesn't come. We're just still so early in this process.
How is your wife feeling about you losing your Friday night?
Not great, but, it is what it is. That's the job.
So I just want to come back to James Wiseman possibly returning. I mean, how would that even happen? How could that even happen at this point? Like, I really do think that they're going to go ahead and go through with this deal no matter what, because that is just at a point of no return. Again, all three general managers, Bob Myers the only one, have already commented publicly on all of this happening. James Wiseman, just feels, an element of done wrong by the Warriors? I don't know. I mean, we're at a point of no return with him, aren't we?
I mean, if they decide that their best course of action is to rescind the deal, like I said, we discussed it would be awkward, but sports is sports. You get paid what you get paid. I mean, it could happen. It's post-deadline, so there would be an awkwardness to it, but if it has to happen, it has to happen. I mean, that's the NBA, really.
It's stunning, to say the least. Slater, you got anything else, Ray?
No.
Have we got anything else?
I think
Lucas,
he should go.
Is there anything we need to examine with Anthony before we let him go? Is there any element that we've missed?
I think we got about everything we can. It sounds like everything is still up in the air, and Anthony kind of told us everything he knows, and, there's still a lot to be learned by everybody at this point.
Now, I think we should let him go back and get yelled at some more by his wife.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate you double dipping with us.
All right, fellas.
All right, so good conversation there, Anthony Slater with Damon and Ratto yesterday. And not a ton of information that's changed between now and then, although there is some new information just in the last 5 minutes or so via Anthony Slater and also Tim Kawakami. The Warriors locker room open as it is in the lead up to games, and Tim and Anthony both went in the Warriors locker room here within the last few minutes or so. And I'll just quote Anthony Slater here via Twitter. Gary Payton has a locker set up in the Warriors locker room, assigned number 8, but the situation remains fluid. Nothing official from the team as the front office continues to sort through the aftermath of this 4-team deal. That's a pretty good indicator of potentially where the Warriors are heading toward this thing, although, again, you can always take down the name tags. You can always put the new ones back up, but we'll see. And the Warriors not expected to have a decision today. Obviously, you mentioned the Woj reporting on that. They have until 6:30 Pacific tomorrow to make a decision. And, again, they can let it roll all the way up until that point. They hold the cards as far as the entirety of the deal. And Woj reporting that the punishment for Portland could be a loss of draft picks and a fine if an investigation were to discover, quote, a failure to disclose relevant information. Woj added that the Warriors believe they should have been told that Payton had been getting Toradol shots to alleviate pain, something that typically is done in the playoffs, but not so much in the regular season. And so the Warriors doing their due diligence on it, maybe just dragging it out because they can. And we'll see what the league ultimately does with Portland. But I know Monty Poole of NBC Sports Bay Area had reported that from what he was hearing, it seemed more likely than not that the Warriors would keep Payton. Obviously, if they keep him and he can't play this year, that is a hit, because part of the Warriors wanting to acquire Gary Payton II was his ability to help now and help this team out of that glut of teams around the 500 mark and push toward trying to at least avoid a play-in tournament, and obviously being a rotation piece that would, if healthy, fit right in to what the Warriors are trying to do down the stretch here. I mean, he would be playable immediately as far as his talent and skill set, and would be in the Warriors' top 8 along with the starting lineup, including Kevon Looney, obviously Jordan Poole, Dante DiVincenzo, and Jonathan Kuminga would be the others among the top 8 and 9. And so if he can't play the rest of the year, I think the whole entire deal, if the Warriors do wind up accepting it here in the next 24 hours, would be scrutinized, and I think rightfully so, as to being willing to take that player back if not only he's unhealthy this year to be able to help this Warriors team, but also he's still got another year on his contract and basically another 2 years on his contract, because there's a player option for a third year. And you would think that at this point Payton would probably opt into that deal considering his injury history. So we all know the Warriors' fondness and the fan base's fondness for Gary Payton II. So I think we'll see what happens, but I think he's a player that the Warriors would like to have around. And so the tea leaves, I think at this point, are indicating that the Warriors are more likely to keep Gary Payton II as opposed to let him go back to Portland and enter James Wiseman into the conversation. All right, final couple of minutes here. Warriors Live on 95.7 The Game, sponsored by Xfinity Internet, better streaming, Flex 4K device, voice remote, and Peacock Premium, all at no extra cost, no strings attached, as the Warriors and Lakers set to go here tonight on 95.7 The Game. And we'll get also to our Taking It to the Bank, Who's Going to Take It to the Bank, which is sponsored by Fremont Bank, full-service banking, no compromises. And Klay Thompson is the pick tonight, going up against the Lakers. 19 threes for Klay over his last 2 games, the most over any 2-game span of his career. 6 3-pointers against the Blazers, and then obviously the 12 3-pointers against against Oklahoma City in the win on Monday, as the Warriors were able to get the job done in that game. So, yeah, Klay Thompson, your take it to the bank prediction in this one. Warriors are starting Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Kevon Looney. So no small starting lineup for the Warriors in this one tonight. JaMychal Green available off the bench, Dante DiVincenzo, Ty Jerome, as well as Kuminga. Anthony Lamb set to play in the G League, so the Warriors saving some of their time for his 50-game limit right now, playing Ty Jerome with Steph Curry out. So that'll do it for Warriors Live. Join me after the ball game. Be taking your phone calls, 888-957-9570. But the Warriors and the Lakers are coming up next. Tim and Tom on the call right here on 95.7 The Game.
Investing is confusing. Dawn raids, triple witching hour, candlesticks, crown jewels, bears, bulls, bear hugs, blue chips. It's one big word salad of uncertainty. Fortunately, Fremont Bank now has incredible rates on their savings accounts and CDs. And while savings accounts and CDs may not be known for their great rates at your current bank, at Fremont Bank, you can get great rates from a great local bank. To learn more, stop in or visit us online. We'll explain it all in plain language. Fremont Bank, serving the Bay Area since 1964. Member FDIC.
Nachos! Yeah, your nachos!
Hey, I'll take some.
Great. And some Frank's Red Hot.
Oh, nah, I'm good.
Oh, you're just gonna eat these dry, plain, boring nachos with no Frank's? Oh, seriously? Frank it up. Frank it up. Come on, lady. Frank it up. Frank it up. Frank it up.